Welcome back, everyone. I'm Rob Nuddleman with Relate Humanly. I am an employment attorney, mediator, and public speaker. The following recording is part 1 of 3. It's part of a seminar I did for the Professional Fiduciary Association of California earlier in 2026 about communicating and difficult conversations, how to get through it. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. Sit back with a cup of coffee. Have a great day. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much getting up at 7:30 in the morning or getting here by 7:30 in the morning. Not always easy, and I appreciate that. We're going to be talking about communication issues, difficult conversations. So we're going to try and exercise first, if that's all right. I want everybody just to close your eyes. Take a deep breath and think about a difficult conversation that you've had recently, or maybe a difficult conversation that you're going to have. Maybe it's with a client, maybe with a family member, an attorney, neighbor, whoever it happens to be. Think about what is difficult about that conversation. Think about what the other person's reaction is going to be. Now, I want you to feel, how do you feel right now? What's your heart doing? What are your hands doing? If you're not eating, what's your mouth doing? Okay, go ahead and open your eyes. Guys, clear that out. Okay, we're gonna do a box breathing real quick. Real simple technique to kind of calm things down. We're gonna take a deep breath in for 4, the count of 4. We're gonna hold it for 4. We're gonna let it out for 4, and then we're gonna leave our breath out for 4. So ready? Deep breath in. Hold it. Let it out. Hold it out. One more. Deep breath in. Hold it. Let it out. Hold it out. Okay. Who wants to, how did that feel? What did anybody want to share what it felt like to think about that difficult conversation? Yeah. Calms you down. Thinking about the conversation calms you down, or the breathing calms you down? The breathing calms you down. How about when you were thinking about the conversation? What happened to you physically, mentally, emotionally? Worked up. Got a little worked up. Brain was going a little bit. Maybe your hands got a little sweaty. Anybody else? Yeah.
My face went into a frown.
Your face went into a frown, so you can feel the muscles in your face. Like I feel it in my temples get all tight and I get stressed. My jaw starts to clench. And after you took those deep breaths, how did that feel? You said it calmed you down. Hopefully your heart slowed down a little bit more. We just manipulated our brains in a very effective way. And that's what our brains do. Our brain is created to kind of protect us in a lot of ways. There's been all sorts of different theories about the brain, and there's Sigmund Freud with the id and the ego and the superego. There's discussions about the reptilian brain and how that our brains developed. Many of that's kind of been debunked by science. But what we do know is that our brain functions to protect us. And when we think about difficult situations where we might be in danger, our amygdala starts producing all sorts of different chemicals and our brain starts firing off. Thinking of those things raises that adrenaline, raises that stress. Thinking about other things, taking those deep breaths, thinking about things that bring us joy can help calm us down. So that's just one of the tools we're going to be talking about today when we're talking about difficult conversations. Number one reason, so I represent employers and employees. Number one reason employees come talk to me is not because the employer has violated the law. It is because they believe they were treated unfairly. And most of that stems from a lack of communication. When I was a newborn attorney, would always look at every week, we'd get the daily recorder and it would have the state bar disciplines and all the reasons that the lawyers would get disciplined or they get reported to the state bar in the investigations. And I read every single one of them. And there were 2 things that were common in almost every single complaint. 1, the attorney played hinky with the money, always a bad thing. And 2, the attorney did not communicate with the client. And so I learned from that on how to handle things, at least always be good at communication, or at least try to be good at communication. You can make mistakes. We all do, right? And if we make those mistakes and they're honest mistakes and we take steps to correct those mistakes, they're probably going to be okay in most situations. But if we don't communicate effectively with our clients, if we don't communicate effectively with our attorneys, there's going to be bigger problems. A lot of things can be fixed just by having good communication. So what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be looking at some of the different causes of communication barriers. We're going to be looking at some intentional communication techniques. What can we do with intention behind it? How do we master those effective listening skills? And we're going to learn a lot about listening and the importance of that. And of course, how to set and maintain boundaries. Boundaries professionally, personally, all those things are going to help us to communicate as effectively as we can. So I had a client that liked to argue about everything. I don't think it mattered what I told them. I could have told them the sky was blue and they would have, no, it's really more of a, it's gray out there. It's not really blue. And there was just something it was one of those clients that, a couple months into the relationship, I was like, why did I take this client on? But I had agreed to take the client on. We were in litigation. I was not going to be getting out of this case for some period of time. I dreaded every time his number would show up on my phone because I knew it wasn't going to be a 2-minute phone call. It was going to be a 20-minute phone call. And no matter what I said, he was going to be disagreeing with my perspective. It took me quite a while, months, to finally figure out that that was this person's process. That this person, in order to internalize the advice and information I was giving them, they had to push back. They had to verbalize these things. Once I figured that out, I was okay with my client disagreeing with me. I was okay. In fact, I would look for opportunities to say something that's going to get him to fight back. Because once we broke through that, once I stopped fighting him, and it was sometimes as simple as saying, I really like that perspective. I hadn't thought about it that way. Let's consider that. And then I would let the client talk a little bit and get a little bit deeper. And eventually he'd come back around to the point that I was trying to make in the beginning, and we'd be in agreement. So what are some different things? We talked about the amygdala. That's, brain chemistry stuff, neuroscience. They've got all sorts of wonderful things where they hook people up to machines and they have them do visualization techniques or show them pictures, and it shows what is happening in the brain. Bottom line is, I think one author calls it the amygdala hijacking, where we have this fight or flight or freeze. We've probably all heard about it, adrenaline, right? Something scares you. You either want to run away, you want to put up your dukes, or you just stuck there frozen. And that happens to us multiple times throughout the day, whether we're driving in a car and something happens. Maybe I get into an argument with my spouse or my children or with a client, with other attorneys. And I kind of go in this little autopilot, and that's natural because what my brain's trying to do is trying to protect me from these perceived dangers. The problem is our brain perceives danger when there's not actually something that we have to run from or necessarily fight. As that amygdala is all firing, our rational thinking stops. Our breath starts getting quick. We start forgetting. We're not getting that oxygen to the brain. When I train my clients for depositions or interviews, if there's a workplace investigation, got a couple rules. Number one rule, tell the truth. Makes it really simple. The second rule is breathe. Take a deep breath. The power of breathing is just remarkable. There are many times a day where I find myself stressed, and I can just take that deep breath and get centered. It's one way that we're going to be turning down the volume on that amygdala. So what are the things? When you did that exercise, what were the things you saw? Some people like to say clenched jaw, frowning face, hands getting sweaty, the sudden desire to get up and leave and run out the door, heartbeats. How often can you pick those exact same things? We just fell over. It's okay. There we go. Can you find those same instances when you're talking to somebody else? Do you see in them that kind of a fear? So when we're talking, oftentimes we're focusing on what we want to say. If we're lucky, we're focusing sometimes on what they're going to say. But what are those little micro expressions that we might see that says somebody's not listening? Any ideas? Cross arms, yeah. They look away, yeah. Not making eye contact. How about this one? You ever get the person who, you're talking to them, they're like, yeah, I'm listening, yeah. And then you ask them, can you repeat back what I said? And they're like, no. Or they repeat back some of it, but not all of it. Yeah, they're crossing their arms. They might get flushed in the face. I have a good friend that I love speaking with her because she gets red in the face when she gets upset. It is like and she doesn't know what's going on, but I can see that and I can know, okay, I need to maybe adjust what my conversation is. We don't always get that kind of a red light, green light type of opportunity to understand that this is what this person's experiencing. There are certain words for me that trigger things. For me, like always or never. There are just certain things that somebody might say, you always do this, you never do this. Well, that's rarely true. Any competent fiduciary would have done this, right? When they bring in the competency. Well, if you were a good lawyer, you would have, whatever it is. That's something that automatically is going to be a trigger for me. Does anybody have any trigger words that are triggers for them that just gets their hackles up? None? You must. Yeah. You must, you always. Yeah. These demands. And then sometimes it's not words, it's certain things. People pay me good money to find out issues and research things and educate them on what to do. And for whatever reason, I get this little stress when I'm giving somebody my advice and they don't want to take it. Like I take that personally. And I've come to learn that the services I'm offering, whether it's as a mediator or as an attorney, conflict resolution, all I can do is open doors for people. I can show them the way and they can choose to open or not. I don't have to take it personally when they decide that they're not going to follow my advice. So think about those words that for you trigger. Next time you're in a conversation and somebody says something in it, that's what got you upset. Think about that. Words for me that also other triggers are when people misuse the words. Now I'm blanking on the word. When they say it, they're meaning it. Oh, this is what actually happened, and it's just an example. See, it's 7:30 in the morning. Sometimes my brain's not working as efficiently as it should. I'll get to it. I'll remember because I hear it all the time. Thinking about the words that other people are using and how that triggers us, think about how those words might also trigger in them. So instead of saying things like, you should have done X, Y, and Z, maybe use words such as, going forward, it would really help if you did this. Rather than saying, you always do that, maybe you just describe the behavior. Today, when I called you, you go straight to voicemail. And I was calling you and it was very important. How do I know they went straight to voicemail? Because it only rang once and they stuck it on the voicemail. I know those tricks.
Yeah.
Asking somebody, why didn't you do this correctly? What was going on? Sometimes the tone makes a difference, obviously. If I come at a very aggressive manner versus, I want to understand where you're coming from. Can you explain to me what happened? Sometimes just calming myself down, taking that lower tone of voice can help. There's a great negotiator, Chris Voss, who writes a book, Never Split the Difference. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. And he uses something called the late night DJ voice. And I love that. For high conflict, high stress conversations, he will intentionally lower his voice and he'll slow things down. Make it intentional, using only a few words at a time. And you just picture this guy, yeah, that's smooth jazz. I like that. It has two effects. One, it calms me down. And two, it calms down the person I'm talking to. Because I have a tendency when I'm excited, and it can be I'm happy excited or I'm nervous excited, I can start to talk really fast, and then I start stumbling over my words, and pretty soon my words are going out faster than my brain is going. And that's when I say usually something stupid. Never happens. Intentional communications are about thinking ahead of time about what that conversation is going to be. I have this one opposing counsel. Another pet peeve of mine, as a lawyer, I deal with facts and I deal with the law. That's not how all lawyers operate, apparently. Sometimes they feel the facts are a little bit more fluid. Maybe the law is a little bit less certain than it actually is. And this one particular opposing counsel, every time we would have a conversation, I would get angry. Like I would stand up out of my chair and pace around the room as I'm talking to this person because we can't agree on just some basic facts. And they were facts that last time I talked to them, we agreed on it. And now they're different, or what the law was. And I had an upcoming call with this particular opposing counsel, and we'd had like 3 or 4 conversations and not made any progress towards resolving this case. So I decided to do something different. I decided, there's all these tools that we're going to be talking about, such as being inquisitive and being calm. I literally laid down on the floor of my office, looked up at the ceiling, took breaths, and I stayed there throughout the whole phone call. It made a huge difference because I wasn't getting up and adding to the fuel of the adrenaline in my system. I was physically taking steps to make changes on how I was going to communicate. And I didn't worry about fighting him on where he was wrong. I knew he was wrong. Pretty sure he knew he was wrong. But even if he didn't, how many times was I going to have the conversation with him of trying to butt heads with him and get the same result? What's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same word over.
Yeah, doing the same thing twice and expecting different results. At what point in time are we going to stop banging into that wall? And sometimes we're that wall. I like to think of goals, and these are just 3 different types of goals that I want to have when I'm going into a conversation. And these are difficult conversations that I oftentimes come across it in conversations with my instructing employers on how to communicate with their employees, but also instructing employees on how to communicate with their employers. We also see these difficult conversations in conversations with family members. You probably hear it in conversations with beneficiaries, with your clients, maybe with your attorneys. Maybe you have an attorney that doesn't talk in the way that is most efficient for you. I like to think about, what is my goal in this conversation? Do I have this outcome goal? This is what I need this person to do. Maybe it's a task. Maybe it's my paralegal and I need them to finish this in time. This is the 3rd time I've asked them to complete something and it's still not done. I need to be very specific. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my discussion about handling difficult conversations. We're going to have part 2 coming up next week. So tune back in. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe, tell a friend. Have a great day.